In his opening statements on impeachment, Representative Devin Nunes kicked off the day with a conspiracy theory laden rant against the Democrats. Take a look.
The witnesses deemed suitable for television by the Democrats were put through a closed-door audition process in a cult-like atmosphere in the basement of the Capitol, where Democrats conducted secret depositions, released a flood of misleading and one-sided leaks, and later selectively released transcripts in a highly staged manner. Violating their own guidelines, Democrats repeatedly redacted from the transcripts the name of Alexander Chalupa, a contractor for the Democratic National Committee who worked with Ukrainian officials to collect dirt on the Trump campaign, which she provided to the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign.
All right, so that's Devin Nunes starting out, like I said, with a lot of things that shockingly are not actually true. So now he's, of course, unhinged from reality and might be having a cow. So now he says they're violating their own process, right? And so what that is, I think he's making the argument that Democrats said, well, we want impeachment to be bipartisan, which is a ridiculous thing to say because it's never going to be a bipartisan issue if you have a Republican Party, which you do today, that is, and really a Republican base that is essentially 100% committed to the president. Remember, there's a poll out there with 62% of Trump supporters say there is absolutely nothing that he could do, Trump, that would get them to not support Donald Trump, which is crazy when you think about it. But there's that majority, and the Republican base is incredibly beholden to that majority. They are afraid of that base, and look, they're afraid of the base because they don't want to lose their jobs. Let's keep it simple, right? So that's why there are nobody that's open in office to impeachment. So let's be fair about that. So now, look, in an impeachment inquiry, by the way, going to the Democrats, again, still violating guidelines or not violating guidelines. This is an impeachment inquiry, right? So now you're allowed to hold closed-door depositions in order to find suitable witnesses for testimony. They did the same thing the Republicans did back during the impeachment of Bill Clinton. So that's literally how it's supposed to work. Not only that, like I said, the Republicans were actually involved in these committees. There were Republicans that sat on the committees, and yet, of course, here you had some Republicans that were not part of the committees, basically trying to break into the closed-door committee hearings. They tried to do that, and they actually did do that, even though some of the Republicans that broke in were literally on the committees, and they were allowed to be in the room. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, not only that, but Democrats released all the transcripts. Unlike the White House, who did not release the transcript of the July 25th call with Vladimir Zelensky. No, what they did is they released a summary, a memo. Okay. There was no selective leaks. No, they released everything, all the testimony. So it's complete and utter garbage. And of course, then he goes after some of the witnesses or some of the people that were, that they want to go testify. And I've got another video on that. But in the clip that I showed you, they talked about Alexandra Chalupa, right? So the deal with her, by the way, she is clamoring to testify. She's like, yes, I want to testify. Bring me on. And remember, this is only the first day of testimony in these impeachment hearings. So it is possible that we could definitely hear from Ms. Chalupa. So now, what Nunes was trying to tie her to is this conspiracy that, no, it was her working with Ukraine to take down Donald Trump. Alexander Chalupa says, actually, no, I did the stuff. I kind of did that work on my own I worked, yes, with the Ukrainians in order to look into Paul Manafort. Paul Manafort, of course, is in big trouble for being essentially a foreign agent for Ukraine. So kind of a different thing, but again, they're tying this into a conspiracy theory that is meant to, of course, try to paint the real people who are meddling in the elections as the Democrats and the Ukrainians. So there's that. But okay, so now the overall point here is you see from Nunes is that he is doing nothing but attacking the process, right? And that's their entire plan, because the substance of this is essentially unassailable. What you have, even from the memo or summary or whatever you want to call it, not a transcript. The real transcript's locked away in the White House somewhere. Now, what you have from that, even reading that, is a president who asked a foreign government for a favor. In fact, I want to read you some of the relevant parts of that memo. Here's Trump. He says, I will say that we do a lot for Ukraine. We spend a lot of effort and a lot of time, much more than the European countries are doing, and they should be helping you much more than they are. So, hey, man, we've been really, really good to you. In fact, he says, but the United States has been very, very good to Ukraine. But I wouldn't say that it's reciprocal necessarily, because things are happening that are not good. But the United States has been very, very good to Ukraine. Now, why do I read that? Because that's essentially a setup to what we see next, right? To this. Trump says, I would like you to do us a favor, though, because our country has been through a lot and Ukraine knows a lot about it, referencing the conspiracy theory. I would like you to find out what happened with this whole situation with Ukraine. They say CrowdStrike. I guess you have one of your wealthy people, the server. They say Ukraine has it. They, of course, meaning the people who are peddling conspiracy theory that it was Ukraine that meddled in the elections, and that there's some secret server hiding in Ukraine somewhere or being hidden in Ukraine that contains the evidence of that. So find CrowdStrike, which, by the way, they incorrectly cite that company that did the research into finding out whether or not there was election interference from the Russians. They say that it was a Ukrainian company. It's actually not a Ukrainian company. It's an American company. But they say, oh, no, CrowdStrike, Ukrainian, works on behalf of Ukraine, and they hid that server in Ukraine. Utter nonsense. No proof whatsoever. But Alexandra Chalupa, guys. Right. Okay. So now he also said this in the memo. Quote, the other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son. That Biden stopped the prosecution. There was no prosecution. And a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the Attorney General, that's William Barr, as a head of the State Department, would be great. And then there are also various references to meet with Giuliani, talk to William Barr, getting all these different people in the State Department and not in the State Department who don't even work for the government, which, Rudy Giuliani, he's his personal lawyer. And then Giuliani, of course, had his friends, Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman, also working in Ukraine, going to Ukraine, looking for that dirt on the Bidens on behalf of Giuliani, on behalf of Donald Trump, so on and so forth. That's what's going on here, okay? And so all that, look, that's in the memo. And, of course, subsequent testimony from, well, I shouldn't say testimony from Parnas because he hasn't testified yet, but he plans on it. He dumped his lawyer, John Dowd, and he says, I am willing to testify that there was indeed what they call quid pro quo, what is actually extortion. Okay, so that's important. And then there's other testimony that we've seen today so far during the impeachment hearing, right? But that was, of course, Nunes's opening statement, full of conspiracy theories. So now, again, this is the memo. This is Trump asking a foreign government for a political favor. Adding the fact that the U.S. was holding aid to Ukraine, which they need, of course, to protect themselves against foreign aggression from Russia, and the fact that Ukraine knew that the aid was being held up by the time of the call. That was something that I was previously unaware of, but they actually had known by July 25th. And it kind of shows that this is a deliberate case of extortion. I have the power. There was a power imbalance. So Zelensky had to kiss his ass and say, okay, yes, we will do that. We will find a time to be able to do those investigations into Burisma and into CrowdStrike, right? So now the Republicans, they can't dispute what's in the memo, their own memo. So they try to attack the process, which is, by the way, no more secret than what the Republicans did during the impeachment hearing of Bill Clinton. But I have one more video. And again, this is going to go into the witnesses and how the Democrats are being so unfair, and they're not calling the real witnesses to this, the real people that we want to answer questions. Take a look.
The Democrats rejected most of the Republicans' witness requests, resulting in a horrifically one-sided process where the crucial witnesses are denied a platform if their testimony does not support the Democrats' absurd accusations. Notably, they are trying to impeach the president for inquiring about Hunter Biden's activities. Yet they refuse our request to hear from Biden himself.
All right, so that's one of the witnesses that they want, Hunter Biden. What does Hunter Biden know about the president's attempt to inquire on or to pressure, essentially, the president of Ukraine to do an investigation into him and his dad? What does Hunter Biden know about it? Well, he doesn't know anything about it. And that's not and that's the point. They don't want to ask him about that. No, they want to say, Hunter Biden, why are you taking $50,000 a month from this Ukrainian gas company? And what do you have to do with CrowdStrike? Now, other witnesses that they wanted to see, and I'll get back to Biden in a second. Other witnesses, as I mentioned, Alexandra Chalupa and the whistleblower. But wait, why do they want to see the whistleblower? Why do they want to talk to the whistleblower? He's essentially, or he or she, I don't know who it is. They are essentially moot at this point because we now have first and second and third hand testimony from people saying what the whistleblower had actually reported on. So what's the point of the whistleblower? Of making them testify? Nah, the point is to punish the whistleblower. And you know it, I know it, and to distract, of course, from what is clearly extortion, which are clearly crimes committed by the president in order to help himself politically. That's what it is. But like I said, Hunter Biden, they want to ask him a bunch of questions. They want to tie him into the conspiracy about Biden going after a prosecutor who said that they were looking into the Bidens. It's not true. In reality, there was a prosecutor, and that prosecutor was pressured to step down, and Joe Biden did have a hand in it. But that prosecutor had not looked into the Bidens, wasn't looking into the Bidens, had done an investigation to Burisma 2 to 3 years before. That was even before Hunter Biden joined the board of Burisma. So there was no basis for an investigation. And besides, there was basically international consensus behind Joe Biden's push to get rid of that prosecutor, who, by the way, was not. The main problem is that they were not looking into corruption. So, look, this has nothing to do with any of this, right? So, no, this is pretty clear here that the Republican playbook is attack the process, and then throw out insane conspiracy theories. That's it. That was Devin Nunes' job. And guess what? He performed it admirably. Because now, of course, this is for a Republican audience, right? This is essentially a Republican play. So people on Fox News, they're going to watch that. They're going to watch Nunes and be like, oh, well, of course. Well, of course. It must be some play, political play. The Democrats, what about Hunter Biden? What about the whistleblower? What about Chalupa? What about all this stuff? So I guess well done on that one. But anybody who takes this guy seriously, I don't think they were ever interested in the facts to begin with. This is Devin Nunes' opening statement is essentially the political equivalent of throwing poop at the wall and seeing what sticks. And it shouldn't be surprising that a guy who tried to sue a fake cow would be the one to deliver it. It's utterly ridiculous. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.